What's going on, guys, and welcome to another book review. And in this review, I'm going to be reviewing The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So hold on, stick tight, and let's get this book review started. So I must say I came across this particular book. It was one of those self-help books that I've seen come up quite a bit. And then what it took was a TikToker had talked about essentially 4 to 5 different books that really changed his life. And this particular book was one he said he really lived by, one that he reread multiple times and said that he really changed his life. And so again, really intrigued me, so I picked it up. I read through it. It was one of those books that you just don't put down. It was really that good. It flowed very well, and essentially it talked about the 4 agreements you should have with yourself and gave you the perspective of how the world really works. I think that's what really matters. Is I talk about perspective all the time and how dramatically perspective can change your life. Whether that is a life event or someone else's perspective, if you are willing to listen to that perspective and incorporate it, you realize that it makes dramatic change in your life. And this book really gives you that change. It talks about fear and how fear guides our life. And how at a young age we've essentially been molded into this idea that you don't really venture out and do anything, because if you do, you could possibly get in trouble. You could possibly have the fear of judgment of going off and doing stuff on your own, and it essentially breaks everything down very simply, and again has these agreements that you should be checking yourself, auditing yourself to allow yourself essentially to go out and attack the world and achieve the things that you want, whether that's professionally or personally. And for myself, I love this book because it broke it down so simply. And for myself, there's a lot of different times when I try to, even like when I make videos and stuff, I try to break stuff down very simply because of the fact that it's easier to relay the message, right? If you can break it down simply, the fact is that you, I think, thoroughly understand the information that you are learning and how important that is. So every time you do learn, it's important to essentially regurgitate what you learn so you can essentially keep that track of that record, right, of what you're learning. And that's ultimately what matters. In this book, again, bringing up a great concept, great ideas of the world of fear that we live in, because that's exactly what we live in, and realize that by going and abiding by these 4 rules, you can essentially overcome those things. And I talk about that, expanding your comfort zone, and these agreements essentially help with that and help you check yourself on, well, am I doing the first agreement or the second agreement, and which one am I not executing on, and keeping yourself in check and realizing that it's repetition that is going to get you there. But these agreements help, again, keep you in check, keep you getting to where you need to go. And so for this book, I think it's one of those books that everybody should read at least once. I myself, I want to read this book actually multiple times. The first one was really good, really intriguing. Now, some books I've noticed that I've read through the first time and it wasn't as good the second time, but this is one of those books that I want to reread and kind of like get some more information, or just go through a lot of the information because it was so good, and see if I pick up anything else. Because a lot of times you can read a book and the second pass through, you learn something new on the second pass through, even the third and fourth pass through, right? And so this is one of those books I think you can really essentially base a lot of your self-development on, is this book, because it breaks it down so simply. Now, as far as like any cons, if you are not religious, you may not like some of the way that it's talked about in God and perspective like that, but just overcome that, right? Like, I've read some books and I've done some book reviews that are like that, and just understand you are not going under it for the religious concepts and ideas behind the book, right? It doesn't dive deep into it, but it does reference God and stuff like that. But just understand that when you're going through books like this, what you're trying to ultimately do is get the message, and that is what matters, and apply what you've learned from that message and get that perspective. And that's what I love about this book, is the message and the perspective behind this book is really good. And apply that to whatever, religion or whatever ideas that you have, and realize that this can dramatically change your life. If you can abide by these agreements, how much you can overcome that fear and it change your life to the way you actually want it. Because again, even for myself, it took me overcoming different kinds of fear to be able to achieve the things that I've wanted in my life. And again, it's through repetition, through doing small incremental changes, essentially conquering one thing, then moving on to the next, and continuing essentially to maintain that comfort zone, and being able to break out of that zone of fear, essentially, in this world of fear, right? Because you see, a lot of times you may want to do something, but you maybe feel that, you know, society wouldn't like that, or your friends or your family wouldn't like that, your circles wouldn't like that, but you want the change. And so you have to overcome that fear and realize that, hey, you know, I want this change. I can find like-minded people. I can continue this going. I just have to understand these agreements, right? I only live once. I want to make the changes that I want to incorporate in my life. And so I need to make sure that these agreements are met. And so if you guys actually do want to read this book, I'll actually have it down in the description below. Also, remember to hit the like button if you did enjoy this book review, and also share it with somebody else if you think that they would like to hear about this particular book. Until next time, I will see you guys later.